All right, so we recently saw America's two presidents, so to speak, current President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, both head to the great state of Michigan to appeal to the striking union members there. Now, both men are trying to either gain or solidify the support of the United Auto Workers specifically, and union members broadly, for next year's presidential election. But as always on this show, we are much more interested in whatever is happening underneath the surface. So today and all week long, we will discuss the folly of looking for a solution in the same place where you found the problem. I'm Steve Hicks, Director of Podcast Ministries for Talking Donkey International. Welcome to a new episode of Something's Happening Here. Hi, welcome back to the show, friends. I hope you had a good weekend, and now it's Monday again. So we're starting a new episode of Something's Happening Here. And I want to warn you right on the front end that it's going to sound like I'm a little bit more partisan than usual as we talk our way through this week. And I don't mean that to be overtly political. That's never the point of this show. But sometimes the actual facts of what we need to discuss simply fall kind of more plainly on one side or the other of the political spectrum. And you're going to see that happens more this week than usual. So my just apologies on the front end. Try to remember that no matter how much we're talking about the party you love or the party you hate, we're ultimately really talking the most about the Lord Jesus Christ and his kingdom, which is soon to come. So our topic for the week, I'm calling it failing upward. And that is the phrase that I use to capture the idea that we have reached a point in time when it's like we're out of creativity. So we look around at these problems that exist and we look to our political leaders. Increasingly, we look to the government instead of our churches or our families or even our own selves. We look to the government to fix all of our problems. And somehow in that process, we forget that the government is largely responsible for many of the problems that we're facing. And so we end up feeding this endless feedback loop of getting a problem from the government and then looking to that same government to save us from the problems that it caused. And that is a real folly. And we'll see even the spiritual danger of that folly. But let me give you an example first. Okay. Our first article for today, it comes from Politico. Sometimes Politico says what we need it to say. So here is an article dated, what's the date on this one? September 19. And the headline is Trump scooped us. Dems sound alarm on Biden's handling of the auto workers strike. That's the kind of political nature of this thing. The first paragraph, some Joe Biden allies fear that Donald Trump is outmaneuvering them on the auto workers strike with his decision to head to Detroit for a speech next week. Apparently, the idea is that Mr. Trump and people who like Mr. Trump were looking to Joe Biden, the sitting president, for some sort of response about this strike, and it didn't come. So Mr. Trump is swooping into that vacuum to fill it with himself, as he is so good at doing. And the strategists fear that this is a political maneuver, and of course it is, but that it will be an effective one. It'll put Donald Trump as the face of the sympathetic union guy, right? The pro-union guy who's going to keep the union's interests at heart. So now we're going to jump down to the third paragraph because this is actually what I want to talk about. This records a statement by Representative Ro Khanna, who is a representative from California. And he's also, according to this article, a member of Biden's National Advisory Board. And he was in Michigan and Ohio with some UAW, that's United Auto Workers members. And he said this, he said, we need a message to working class Americans. Right now, they're still hurting in terms of gas prices, food prices, housing costs, utilities costs, and they don't feel like their wages are going up fast enough. And they feel like the very wealthy are getting too much of the rewards. That's what I heard on the picket lines. Okay, well, that's fair enough, right? Those seem like reasonable things to be upset about. Except we have to remember, let's just go straight down the list. Why are gas prices so high? I remember before Mr. Biden became president, I was filling up gas at less than $2 a gallon. In California, I was doing that at less than $2 a gallon. California has the highest gas prices in the country, but it was less than $2 a gallon before the current administration and its policies took over. But what we've seen is the shutting down of the Keystone Pipeline development, which means that there was really no oil development coming for the next several years, as long as the administration was in power. We saw the shutting down of various oil sources and a discontinuation of the lease of federal lands for that purpose. And I could go on, but all of this together has given us what in California when I left was hovering around $5 a gallon, and that was at the cheap station. So we're looking to the cause of the problem to solve the problem. What about the next one? Food prices. Well, the cost of gas has a lot to do with the cost of food because you have to transport the food from where it's grown to where it's consumed. And so the higher the cost of the fuel to do that, that cost gets passed along to the food. And so the food cost goes up as well. And let's also not forget that a lot of the food in the American food supply comes from the Central Valley of California. And if you want to get into the local politics there, you will understand that the state government and the federal representatives for the state government have been restricting the water supply for the farmers in the Central Valley for like 15 years now. And so when there's no water, there's no food. And when there's scarcity of food happens, the cost goes up. And so there are many factors involved here, but a lot of them fall at the feet of the Democrats. And that's where you're going to hear me get a little more partisan than usual, because that's just the truth. What's about the next one? Housing costs. Well, I could go on for an hour about the housing cost problem, but in short, let's just use California as an example. California makes it incredibly difficult to build any building, but houses specifically. They have literal legislation that prohibits certain types of housing. They have building codes that are constantly getting updated, making it hard to stay even just a step ahead of the planning departments to get something built in the first place. There are costs through the roof, litigation costs, workers' compensation costs, OSHA costs and whatnot. And so it's just, and plus you can't forget that California has an extraordinarily high property tax rate. So the higher the value is of your property, the higher amount of taxes you have to pay. And that is a huge source of income for the state government. So the state government itself has no incentive to do anything to bring down the outrageous cost of housing there. Whoo! Utilities costs directly tied to the cost of fuel. Because you know, until we have Superman who can crank that electromagnet to make the electricity happen, then we have to feed that process with fossil fuels. And so when fossil fuels are expensive, so is the electricity produced by the fossil fuels. Have I made my point yet? I hope so, because I'm running out of time. When we look to the same place where we got the problem in the first place for solutions to those problems, it's a fool's errand. And now this is a secondary point, but I think it's worth making anyway. The second article for today comes from the Associated Press, and it's called "Trump Goes to Michigan to Rail Against Biden's Electric Vehicle Push While GOP Rivals Debate." And so this was dated, I think, the 28th, September 28th. And on the date of that first article, there was no plan for Biden to head out there, right? And oh no, woe is me, Trump is going to get all the political benefit from this. Well, you fast forward a week, and what does this one say? Donald Trump, the Republican frontrunner's trip, came a day after Biden became the first sitting president in U.S. history to walk a picket line as he joined United Auto Workers in Detroit. Do you get it? So not only did Mr. Trump's announcement that he was going to go there prompt a response from Mr. Biden and the administration that they would not otherwise have taken. So it's like 4D chess that you see unfolding it right in real time. But look how the media responded to it. Right? It couldn't just be that Biden is going there to talk. No, he's the first sitting president in U.S. history. Like everything, he's the first Black vice president, the first 80 million voted president, the first transgender general, or whatever, right? The first openly gay nuclear guy, or whatever. They always have to default to how historic everything is that they're doing, because everything that they're doing is really not very effective. I just had to mitigate my language there because I didn't want to get in trouble with you folks. So yeah, there we go. That's the media being the media and politicians being politicians. But the spiritual point of all this, we can get out of Matthew chapter 12. The story here is, we pick it up in verse 22. Then one was brought to Jesus who was demon-possessed, blind and mute. And Jesus healed him so that the blind and mute man both spoke and saw. And the multitudes were amazed and said, "Could this be the son of David?" So here come the Pharisees to mess it all up in verse 24. Now, when the Pharisees heard it, they said, "This fellow Jesus does not cast out demons except by Beelzebub, the ruler of the demons." That's another name for Satan. So what they're claiming is that Jesus is this same phenomenon we're talking about. The people were going to Jesus to solve their problem, but the Pharisees claimed that Jesus, the master of Jesus, Beelzebub, was the source of the problems in the first place. And so Jesus knows that that whole thing is wrong, and he knows that they're wrong in accusing him of it. So he says this in verse 25. He knew their thoughts and said to them, "Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself will not stand. If Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand?" And we can very easily take that principle and apply it to the broad phenomenon of looking to your problem source to get an answer, but even specifically to the UAW problem. Because does anybody really believe that either Trump or Biden have the magic bullet solution to this? I certainly don't. I mean, I certainly don't at all. One of the things they're so upset about is the coming of electric vehicles, and they're worried that the different manufacturing processes involved in that and the different sources of the materials and et cetera, are going to ultimately outsource their jobs somewhere else or reduce their pay, and they're going to get the back end of that. Well, is Biden going to fix that problem? He's like the biggest loudmouth for electric vehicles on earth right now. He's, is he really going to go there to put their hearts at ease? I doubt it. And what about Trump? I mean, certainly they don't believe that he has the union's best interests at heart, and probably he doesn't, but I don't really know very much about his stance on unions. I just know that historically, the Democratic Party is the party of the unions. So he probably faces a really strong uphill battle to get the minds and hearts of those people on his side. So I don't think that either one of these men are or even represent the answers to this problem. And yet that's where everybody's looking for the very answers to this problem. And Jesus says, when you do that, when you look to the source of your problem as an answer to your problem, then your kingdom is divided against itself and it cannot stand. So I don't think this is going to end very well. I don't think the UAW strike or any other problem where we keep looking to the same old tired place that caused the problem in the first place, I don't think any of that's going to end well. And we have Jesus putting his seal of approval on that idea. So when you come back tomorrow and in the days that follow, we're going to keep building this argument and then eventually get to the solution, right? If we can't look to the same old places for the answer, what do we do instead? So make sure you're subscribed and come back to hear the entire argument all week long. Right now, let's pray. Lord God in heaven, we clearly need wisdom because the best of human wisdom is involved in this silly business. And as we're seeing, it's not going to end well and there is no real solution to it. So we clearly need divine wisdom. Bless us and give us that wisdom and anoint our minds to know where to go and what to say, but also where not to go and what not to say. We eagerly desire to hear what your wisdom looks like and to align ourselves with it from now until we can meet you in the air and go home to your kingdom. So bless us and forgive us in Jesus' holy name. Amen. And now be subscribed. On Facebook, we're pointing you to the Steve Hicks page right now, and we want you to like it, like the page, which will make you a follower of it. On YouTube, please find our channel at the Talking Donkey International channel and subscribe to it and hit your notification bell. On Rumble, find our channel there and hit the follow button. On Locals, find our channel there and become a member. You have to do it like Facebook, where you create an account and become a member there. And we also have an option for paid supporters because I have additional content that I produce every week, and it's only available on Locals. So I want you to pray about that. That helps us stay on the air, and we'll give you more stuff. Lastly, you can go to talkingdonkeyinternational.org/podcast for an entire archive of our stuff up to this point. So may God bless you. I hope you have a great evening, and I'll see you back here tomorrow.